You ever sit in the back of a courtroom and feel like the only real thing in there is the sunlight through the windows? That's how it started for meth, kind of morning where the old courthouse smells like paper and polish, and everything moves just a little slower than you want, like the building itself is holding its breath. I was there, Clara Jenkins, 58, hands folded in my lap, sitting so still on that cracked wooden pew you'd think I was glued there. No jewelry, no fancy watch, just the gold ring I had so long it felt like part of my skin. I watched the man at the defendant's table, Mason Whitaker, and for a long time he didn't look back. That's all right. I saw him plenty. They say a courtroom shows you who people really are, and I guess that's true. Polished lawyers, anxious family, the judge with his voice like gravel and certainty. He read out Mason's name, Mr. Whitaker, like it was the last word in a story nobody wanted to tell, and you could hear the bench creak when folks shifted, waiting for something to happen, maybe a tear, maybe a scene, but not from me. Not today. You know what's funny? Most people in that room didn't even notice me when I walked in. The guard at security asked who I was there for, and I said, I'm here for him. Didn't need to say his name. Inuai idikome. And I kept my hand on my purse, just feeling the edge of an old photograph, one I never had the nerve to look at unless I needed to remember the best kind of pain. Now, Mason, he's 28 now, but I still see him at 11 skinny, all sharp corners, a kid who flinched at his own shadow and slept with crackers under the pillow like hunger could sneak up on him in the dark. First time I met him, the caseworker said, don't expect him to connect, and I just nodded. I didn't push. Just made pancakes every Saturday, folded his laundry, let him know I was there without saying too much. The first time he called me Ma, it was barely a whisper, but it was everything. On his 12th birthday, he made me a card from magazine scraps. You didn't give me life, but you gave me one. You ever read something like that and not cry? Me neither. But, you know, life doesn't care about happy endings, not always. A few weeks later, someone else, distant blood, some cousin, filed for custody. The agency said it was better for him. I never even got to say goodbye. Wrote letters, called everyone I could, but the system doesn't listen to quiet women with tired eyes and too many casseroles. He was gone before I could catch my breath, and the house felt wrong for a long, long time. So, sitting there that day, watching him across the room, I kept thinking, does he remember the smell of cinnamon from my kitchen, the way I hummed when storms rattled the windows? Maybe not, but I remembered. I always did. Lawyers droned on, evidence was read, the judge called recess. Folks whispered, stared, some wondering if I was lost, others thinking maybe I was just another janitor. One young attorney came over, trying to be polite. Are you lost? She asked, like she couldn't quite place me. I just smiled and said, no, I'm right where I need to be. She looked embarrassed and hurried away, but I didn't mind. After a while, you get used to being invisible. Then came the moment the judge asked Mason if he had anything to say before sentencing. He sat there, silent for so long I thought maybe he'd pass, but then he stood. His voice was rougher than I remembered, but under it was that same old ache, that music I used to hear when he sat at my table. I've done a lot wrong, he said, and I spent a long time being angry at people who left. He paused, and his eyes finally met mine. But when I was a kid, there was this woman. She made pancakes every Saturday. She sat with me during storms. She called me baby even when I didn't deserve it. That meant home. That meant safe. It was like every person in that courtroom turned at once, wondering who he was talking about. My hand started to shake, but I kept still, let him have the moment. He said, if she's still willing to be my mom, I need her now. The judge looked at Miralai, looked like he finally saw the story under my skin. He said, MS. Jenkins, Clara Jenkins. And then, something I never expected, the judge remembered me. You're the woman who got Lily to speak again, he said. His own niece, years ago. I remembered her, tiny, scared, clutching a pink elephant toy and barely speaking above a whisper. I'd sung to her, just like I did for Mason. The whole room went quiet, like, for a second. Nobody cared about verdicts or sentencing or anything but the fact that broken things could heal. Judge Rowe's voice softened. There are people in our world who stitch together the broken pieces of others and ask nothing in return. MS. Jenkins, you're one of those people. I felt a tear slip down my cheek and didn't bother to hide it. That courtroom built for judgment felt like it was holding something different, something closer to grace. When the judge finally read the sentence, he said there would be no prison for Mason, just rehabilitation, community service mentoring kids who might need what he'd once needed. He looked right at me and said, "You've changed a life." And for the first time in years, I felt seen. Afterward, the courthouse doors opened, and the hot Georgia air hit my face, full of all the old ghosts. Mason stood beside me outside, shifting his weight, not quite meeting my eyes. He said, "I didn't think you'd be here." And I told him, "You were never lost to me, Mason. Not once." He looked up, all that hurt and hope fighting in his face, and I reached into my purse, pulled out that old photo of him at 11, standing in my kitchen, me behind him with flour on my apron. "I fought for you," I said. "The system doesn't always listen, but I did." He took the photo, didn't say much, but we didn't need words. Sometimes just standing side by side is enough to start again. 2 years later, I was at a foster care benefit, string lights glowing, music soft. Mason stood on stage, sleeves rolled up, tattoos showing. "I spent years thinking I was just a mistake waiting to happen," he told the crowd. "But there was a time when I was a kid, and one woman made me feel like I belonged." He pointed at me. "She's not just my foster mom. She's my mother." I sat there, heart so full I thought it might burst, not out of pride, but because the broken things in us had finally started to mend. That night, when I went home, I pulled out that old photograph and put it beside a new one Mason, grown and grinning, his arm around my shoulders, standing outside the courthouse where everything had changed. You want to know what justice looks like? It's not just a verdict or a sentence. Sometimes it's the simple act of staying. Sometimes it's love that keeps showing up, even when the world looks away. You know what I mean? So, Tomato, you think the system gets it right? Or is real justice something we make ourselves, one act of kindness at a time? I want to hear what you think, whether you believe in second chances, or if you think some wounds just never heal. Share your story. Let's talk about what justice, love, and community really mean.